Before I even start on this topic, we need to ask ourselves a question. Do we want to be humble at all? Why do we want to be humble? I'm disrespectful, vile, fickle-minded, full of envy, ungrateful, dependent on others, cruel and most sinful. In this condition, how can I cross this impassable ocean of material existence and attain the service of your lotus feet? If we want the suffering to stop and we want prema, we should pray for humility. The basic ingredient of humility is knowledge, transcendental knowledge to be specific. One of my favorite quotes which perfectly describes humility is from Srila Satchidananda Swami, who says, "Humility is vision of reality. Reality means truth. Materialistic life means attachment to the body and everything in relationship to the body. This attachment is based on lusty desires for sense gratification, specifically sexual enjoyment. When one is too attached to material enjoyment, he is bereft of all knowledge, hritagya. Therefore, to talk about humility, we must first establish our proper sambandha, the knowledge of transcendental reality." When Krishna describes to Arjuna what is knowledge, out of 20 items he mentions humility first. Here is our connection. Knowledge equals humility. How do we make sure we are always situated on the safe grounds of transcendental knowledge? How to see through the eyes of knowledge? Studying Srila Prabhupada's books without a question is the most important element. Second is chanting the holy names of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. To regain my often lost enthusiasm for studying, I habitually practice these following exercises. These tips are just a sort of a booster or inspiration to help you expand and deepen your already established practice. Tip number 1. Take notes. This is a common practice, I know, but regardless, it certainly helps me keep track with important facts, inspirational quotes, etc. For some reason, I am obsessed with numbers and everything which is listed in the Shastra, so I routinely note down all the parts where there is a mention of some kind of list. For instance, we can see here there is 1, 2, 3, so all sorts of various items which are listed in the Shastra. I really like these because they help me remember them, come back to them. This, for instance, for divisions of the renounced order of life, sannyas. So this is, for me, as I said, an extremely inspiring and easy way to remember information and learn things, new things. Tip number 2. Answer the why. I always challenge myself and try to answer why this or that is like this according to our philosophy. For instance, why is the tree growing upwards? Or why do children lie without second thought? Or why do birds not have vertigo? Or like this, it can be anything. And I look for the answers through our scriptures to establish and substantiate my answer. Tip number 3. Explain and explain again. Often when I think that I know the answer to some complex philosophical question, it certainly proves otherwise. I like to describe therefore my view in different ways. I like to explain the topic as if I'm talking to a child. Also, I like to explain it as if I'm talking to a crowd of 10,000, where there is a variety of listeners. This helps me streamline my own understanding, and also I practice my presentation skills simultaneously. Humility means giving up our own authority, our own way of seeing things. This can only be done if we surrender to the authority of transcendental knowledge. Knowledge is the qualification for spiritual advancement. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has appeared to teach us this real knowledge, the knowledge of devotional service, along with the proper detachment from whatever does not foster Krishna consciousness. Although we might have a picture in our mind about humility as someone who is submissive, meek and quiet, in reality, Humility means full control of the mind, and the only way for us to control our mind is by suitable practice and by detachment. It is paramount, therefore, to know how to behave properly and abandon those activities which are detrimental to devotional life, along with the positive engagement of chanting the holy names. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than a straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. I remember that one of the first instructions I got when I joined ISKCON was to be more humble than a blade of grass. I was explained that if one steps on a blade of grass, it humbly bows down under the foot, but when the foot is lifted, the blade of grass rises again without complaint. As a tree is cut down with the help of a branch cut from itself, it does not protest, and while dying in the heat, it does not request a drink. It gives its wealth, its shade, fruits and flowers to anyone who asks, while tolerating the heat and rain and simultaneously protecting others, all the while standing tall and firm like a steady pillar. Tolerance means that we should never protest and we are never dependent on someone else. To depend on others doesn't necessarily mean that traditional sense of dependence where one is reliant on others for food, shelter and so on, but it means that we understand that behind everything there is Krishna, who provides all our needs and who bestows all the benefits to everyone. Tolerance also means tolerating our own karma and tolerating Krishna karma. When we wait for Krishna to bestow his causeless mercy upon us, while patiently suffering the reactions of our past misdeeds and serving Krishna with our heart, words and body, only then will we be liberated. Vaishnavas offer everyone appropriate respect, knowing that all jivas rest within Krishna. Every material body is a temple of Krishna, since Krishna is present in everyone's heart. When we go into a temple, what do? We offer our obeisances, and we don't really expect Krishna to return this gesture to us. Well, I hope you don't. Similarly, we should offer our appropriate respect to every living being. Some might be a little rundown temples, some splendid multi-story buildings, but the principle is the same. Another advice from Lord Chaitanya is that we should also avoid prajalpa and eating very palatable food, and we should stay away from dressing very nicely. Strengthened with knowledge, these practices help control the mind. If we achieve this attitude and mentality, it represents a tipping point in our spiritual advancement. Humility is such an important element in our devotional life that once developed, Krishna presents to us a whole new reality. When we become humble, we are able to focus our minds. This in itself doesn't sound so dramatic, but only when one has mastered this art, the art of control of the mind, can the mind be utilized for its ultimate purpose, to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, constantly, without disruption and with fixed determination. This is called Nishtha. The essence of steadiness is humility. The initial qualification for bhakti is faith, but the second qualification is humility. Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that there are 6 types of holy names, and if you have the currency of Nishtha, bodily, vocal and mental steadiness, you can purchase with it Rupa Yukta Naam, name connected to Krishna's form. We have to mold our lives in such a way that we become one with these qualities, instead to want everything around us to adjust to our needs. To be fixed in a humble state of mind, we should carefully cultivate our speech, behavior and thinking, and anything that stands in the way of this should be avoided. There are 2 types of humility. One that removes obstacles to one's fate is explained in the second verse of Shikshashtakam. This humility arises out of remorse for one's attachment for sense enjoyment. The second expression of humility makes one weak to receive the grace of God. It comes from the soul. It awakens out of complete detachment from sense enjoyment. Humility arising from the soul is a natural byproduct of spiritual advancement. It begins to manifest at the stage of Nishta. In Nishta Bhajana Kriya, the limited soul approaches the door of the infinite. Above the door, a sign reads, Kirtaniya Sada Hari, always chant the name of Hari. And the doormat to this threshold says, Sunichena, be humble. We acquire this knowledge from the book Bhagavat and from the person Bhagavat. If the result of regularly hearing the Bhagavat book and serving the Bhagavat devotee is the same, it should be clear that hearing the book involves much more than an intellectual exercise. Theoretical knowledge often fosters pride, whereas wisdom facilitates humility. Transcendental knowledge is also called Shabda. And apart from the basic function of providing information, it is also completely empowered to purify the heart of the receiver. When we become truly humble, our faith becomes well thought out, our sadhana intensifies, our inner certainty solidifies, and due to our strong faith, we start knowing before thinking. Our heart purifies, our determination for chanting escalates, and become aligned with the reality of transcendence. As one leaves the small world of the mind and its misery behind, one experiences the first characteristics of Shuddha Bhakti: freedom from suffering, kleshagni. Suffering is a result of karma, and it is experienced in the mind. What is happy for one is sad for another. One creature's funeral is another's festival. Beyond the relativity of the mind's perception of good and bad, happy and sad is the realm of consciousness. In Nishta Bhajana Kriya, Krishna's holy name removes the mental blindfold of ignorance and passion that have obstructed the fact that we are pure consciousness, no matter. Without Nishta, without humility, tolerance, pridelessness, and attentive chanting, there will be no bhava. Because humility is basically the fast track to bhava, it is such a rare commodity that it is nearly impossible to acquire only by our own effort. Therefore, we must pray for it, beg for it, and cry for it. O Hari, I am an offender, guilty of thousands of offenses, and therefore punishable. I am drowning in this fierce emotion of material existence. Lost, I take shelter of your lotus feet. Please, make me your own. You have promised that you will definitely deliver anyone who has taken shelter of you. Please, therefore, deliver me also. Final question about humility is, how do we know that we achieved it? How do a devotee knows that he or she is humble? What are the symptoms? Well, there are few we already discussed, but the most important one is that a devotee who is humble doesn't think about himself that he is humble. And finally, here is Sanatana Goswami's definition of humility. Wise men define Dainya as a state in which one always thinks oneself exceptionally incapable and low, even when endowed with all excellences. To finish this video a little different, I made a quiz to see how well you paid attention. The first question is, how many divisions are of the renounced order, sannyas? The correct answer is C, 4. How many items Krishna lists in Bhagavad Gita which represent knowledge? The correct answer is B. And finally, which development stage of devotional service is represented in the Trinad Apisunicena verse? Correct answer is A. Nishta. Thank you for your time and attention. Please let me know what realizations you have about humility. If you have any experience or incident which helped you be more humble, please let me know in the comments. I would also like to take this opportunity and welcome all our new subscribers. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.